We all know that the Mustang is an immortal icon of America, but few realize that hidden behind the millions of Mustangs that have ever rolled in real life, there exist versions so rare that they have almost become legends. There are those only produced in a few units. There are those that are prototypes never appearing before the public, and even one that was unique in the world, then disappeared like a ghost in history. In this video, we will together explore 10 ultra-rare Mustang models that you might have never known. At number 10 is the 1967 Mustang GT Hypo 289K code. At first glance, it is not an overly flashy or rebellious model like the famous Shelbys of the same era, but that itself is what makes it special. This is almost the final farewell of the high-performance Mustang generation, using the 289K code engine before most of Ford's attention shifted entirely toward the more famous Shelby GT 350 projects. The most valuable point of this model lies in the fact that it is not only rare, but also represents a very important transition moment in Mustang history. 1967 was the stage when Ford began to strongly change its performance orientation, and the remaining GT Hypos are like the last warriors of an era that was closing. In total, only about 195 units were produced with this configuration, a number too small if placed alongside the hundreds of thousands of Mustangs that ever left the assembly line. Under the hood is the 289 cubic inch K-code V8 block, producing about 271 horsepower, a very impressive figure at that time. But the real attraction does not only lie in the power. This engine is equipped with a forged crankshaft, upgraded connecting rods, and many internal details significantly more durable than the standard version, turning it into a machine, born for those who truly like a powerful driving feel. Combined with that is a high-performance suspension system, among the most expensive that Ford ever put on the Mustang at that time, helping the car have road-holding capability and significantly sharper steering response. If you want to recognize a real one among the crowd, the most notable detail is the 15-inch wheel set borrowed from the Galaxy XL 7-liter, a very rare option on Mustangs of this era. That is a small type of detail, but is enough for the collecting community to recognize they are standing in front of an unusual car. Today, the value of the 1967 Mustang GT Hypo 289K code can reach the threshold of about $200,000 if the car's condition is good enough. At number 9 is the 1971 Mustang Mach 1429 Super Cobra Jet. If the late 1960s were the period of unlimited American muscle explosion, then this model is like the final roar of the big block era before everything was halted by the fuel crisis, skyrocketing insurance, and increasingly stringent emissions regulations. 1971 was no longer the time when the Mustang was compact, agile, and simple, like the early days. This generation had become significantly larger, heavier, and more aggressive. But within that massive body, Ford placed one of the most fearsome configurations to ever appear on a street Mustang, the 429 Super Cobra Jet Ram Air engine. This 429 cubic inch V8 engine block was announced at 375 horsepower, but car enthusiasts all understand that the actual figure was usually significantly higher. The difference that makes the Super Cobra Jet version special lies in the massive Holley 780 cubic feet per minute carburetor, allowing the engine to breathe harder, providing a more violent throttle response and creating a very characteristic pickup feel that later Mustang models could hardly replicate. Regarding rarity, only about 531 1971 Mustang Mach 1 units were produced with the 429 Super Cobra Jet configuration, making it one of the most valuable Mach 1 versions of the entire 1971 to 1973 generation. It is not rare in the style of a forgotten secret, but rare in the way that anyone who knows about it understands that this is one of the final chapters of the golden era of American muscle. The interesting identifying sign of this model lies in the interior configuration with bucket seats, and especially the very characteristic Hurst shifter, a small detail but enough to catch collectors' attention immediately. That is part of a very mechanical experience, very pure muscle car when the driver not only sits in the car but also truly has to struggle and control it. At number 8 is the 1993 SVT Cobra R. What makes the SVT Cobra R special is not just the name, but the way Ford approached this project. They almost applied an extreme weight loss regimen for the car. The radio was eliminated, the air conditioning disappeared, soundproofing materials were cut back. The rear seat was also no longer there. The goal was very clear: minimize weight to serve racing. In total, the car was significantly lighter than many regular Mustang versions of the same time, turning it into a much sharper machine when cornering, accelerating, and braking hard. Under the hood is the 5.0-liter Windsor Fay 8 engine, a name already too familiar to Fox body fans. But on the Cobra R, the value lies not only in pure power, but also in the overall balance. Ford also reinforced the chassis stiffness with a strut brace, helping the front end be firmer and steering response more accurate. This is no longer the type of Mustang that only needs to run straight very fast, but a car refined to operate much more seriously in a high-performance environment. Regarding rarity, only exactly 107 units were produced, turning the Cobra R into one of the rarest Fox body models in history. And to make it even easier to identify, Ford only sold this model in a single color, vibrant red. Accompanying it is a very characteristic 17-inch 5-spoke wheel, set a special detail in that this was actually an ahead of its time wheel style, just like Ford had early installed the design of the 1994 generation onto this last Fox body. The value of the Cobra R has also increased strongly over time. From a starting level of about $25,000 in the early 90s, today, beautiful cars can reach the threshold of about $150,000 or more. At number 7 is the 2020 to 2022 Shelby GT 500 Code Red. If the previous rare Mustang models were astonishing because of small quantities or special historical contexts, then the Code Red makes people stunned in a different way. It is like Shelby's arrogant answer to the question, what would happen if a Mustang no longer accepted any limits anymore? Basically, Shelby took the already extremely formidable platform of the modern GT 500 and pushed it far beyond all ordinary standards. Instead of continuing to rely on the traditional supercharger system, they decided to eliminate it to switch to twin-turbo. That decision was not just a mere technical change, but a leap in philosophy. Shelby no longer wanted to create a powerful muscle car. They wanted to create a machine capable of crushing all old definitions of Mustang performance. The result is a true monster. The Shelby GT 500 Code Red can reach approximately 1,300 horsepower and 1,000 pound-feet of torque figures that once only belonged to the world of hypercars or extreme drag builds. This is the type of car that just looking at the specifications is enough to understand it no longer belongs to the traditional Mustang world. The exterior of the Code Red was also created so that no one could mistake it for an ordinary GT 500. The carbon fiber widebody kit makes the body look significantly lower, wider, and more aggressive. At the rear is a massive racing-style spoiler. Along the body are characteristic Shelby rocker stripes, like a statement that this is not a decorative version, but one of the most extreme Shelbys ever created. Only about 30 units were produced, turning the Code Red into one of the rarest modern Mustangs, and also one of the most technically shocking ones. Regarding value, the Shelby GT 500 Code Red has a price exceeding $224,000, a figure that shows it has stepped out of the range of a premium muscle car to move straight into the world of ultra-expensive, high-performance collector cars. At number 6 is the 1994 Saleen S351 Speedster. This is not an official product manufactured by Ford in the usual way, but is the result from the hands of Steve Saleen, who has spent his entire career turning Mustangs into machines that are much sharper, more aggressive, and different than the factory originals. Saleen equipped it with a 5.8-liter supercharged V8 block, providing about 500 horsepower, a figure almost insane for a street-legal American car at the time of 1994. In that context, the S351 Speedster was not only fast, but also strong enough to step into the confrontation with the top performance cars of the era. Many people view it as one of the fastest American cars of the 90s, a machine born to tear the wind rather than just merely stroll the streets. Regarding design, this car also does not hide its ambition. The most recognizable sign is the light bar behind the seats, a detail that gives this convertible version a very unique appearance, both sporty and somewhat close to a show car. The front of the car carries Saleen's exclusive aerodynamic front bumper design, making the entire car look lower, longer, and more aggressive than the standard Mustang GT. It is no longer a familiar youthful pony car. It has become something more mature, more dangerous, and also much more expensive. Rarity is what puts the S351 Speedster in its rightful place on this list. Only exactly 10 convertible units were created, turning it into one of the rarest Saleen Mustangs to ever appear. That is the type of quantity where just a few units disappear over time, the collecting market will immediately become thirsty for stock. Regarding value, the interesting thing is that this model holds its value extremely well over the years. Current valuations usually revolve around the original new purchase price at about $60,000, and for a high-performance tuned model of the 90s, that is a sign showing that collectors truly understand what they are looking at. At number 5 is the 1980 Mustang McLaren M81. This is the type of car that, if just hearing the name, many people would think it is a fictional story. McLaren, the name associated with Formula One of the United Kingdom, shook hands with Mustang, an American muscle icon entering its most difficult stage of the first Fox body era. But that seemingly opposite combination created one of the rarest and most interesting Mustang models in history. Instead of using a traditional V8 engine, this car followed a very different path. It used a 2.3-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, but was refined by McLaren to raise the boost pressure to about 11 pounds per square inch. In the context of 1980, this was a very strange approach for a Mustang. It no longer relied on large displacement to create power, but began to touch upon a more modern performance mindset, squeezing power from a smaller, lighter, and more technological machine. That itself makes the M81 a very special model because it reflects the moment Mustang was forced to change to survive. However, what makes the McLaren M81 make the strongest impression is not only the engine configuration, but the almost unmistakable appearance. The wide-body kit makes the originally compact Fox body become significantly wider, lower, and more aggressive. The front of the car carries an aggressive street racer look, while the hood has air vents and is secured with hood pins, a detail that clearly evokes the feel of a machine born for performance rather than daily convenience. And of course, the bittersweet orange paint color is the most prominent identifying sign, making the car look as if it is screaming that it is not like any other Mustang. Regarding rarity, only exactly 10 McLaren M81 units were produced. Today, the value of a 1980 Mustang McLaren M81 can be around $75,000, a price level that correctly reflects its special status in the eyes of the collecting community. At number 4 is the 1971 Shelby Europa. The story of this car begins not in Detroit, but in Europe. More specifically, the Claude Dubois dealership in Belgium saw the opportunity to create a Shelby version reserved for high-end European customers, those who still loved the Mustang's aura, but wanted something more different than the standard version. Instead of just importing whole cars, then reselling them, they ordered genuine Shelby components from the US to assemble and finish according to their own style. As a result, the Shelby Europa was born a rare hybrid between American-style wildness and European-style luxury aesthetic. Under the hood is the 351 V8 engine, providing about 320 horsepower, enough to retain the powerful soul that any true Shelby must have. It was not a model created to break speed records, but a type of grand touring muscle car with its own color, where performance was still clearly present, but wrapped in an image much more elegant and unusual than the familiar Mustangs on American soil. What makes the Shelby Europa attractive to collectors lies in its very characteristic identification details. At the front is a pair of CBA fog lights mounted on the grille, a very European detail almost immediately separating it from the Mustangs produced for the US market. At the rear, the gas cap has an embossed Shelby snake logo like a seal, confirming that this is not an improvised build, but a very special chapter in Shelby history. Regarding rarity, only exactly 9 1971 Shelby Europa units were ever created. Today, the value of a Shelby Europa can exceed $100,000, and that is completely reasonable. At number 3 is the 2011 Shelby 1000. What makes the Shelby 1000 special, first of all, lies in the way it was born. Customers cannot simply walk into a showroom and buy a complete one immediately. They must own a Ford Mustang Shelby GT500 themselves, first then send the car to Shelby American to perform this extremely expensive upgrade package. But the name Shelby 1000 is not a marketing gimmick. It accurately reflects the nature of the car. Under the hood is the 5.4-liter V8 engine block that is completely hand-assembled, deeply upgraded to produce about 1,000 horsepower for the street version. And for customers who want something even crazier, Shelby even provided an 1,100 horsepower version just for the track. At the time of 2011, these were almost unthinkable figures for a street-legal Mustang. Shelby did not simply supercharge and then stop at a beautiful number on paper. To control that massive amount of power, the car also underwent comprehensive intervention in the cooling system, chassis, suspension, drivetrain, and brakes. The Shelby 1000, therefore, is not a GT500 version that is just slightly more powerful. It is a completely reborn version, where the familiar Mustang was pushed beyond the boundaries of traditional muscle cars to touch the territory of extreme performance supercars. Regarding rarity, only about 8 units were completed in this configuration, turning the Shelby 1000 into one of the rarest modern Mustang models to ever carry the Shelby American logo. The cost for this upgrade package at that time reached about $154,000, and that did not yet include the price of the original GT500 that the customer had to purchase themselves beforehand. At number 2 is the 1969 mid-engine LID Boss 429. In the late 60s, the performance car world was changing very fast. In Europe, supercar brands began pursuing mid-engine configurations to improve balance and high-speed handling. After the success of the GT40, Ford clearly did not want to stand outside that game either. And then a crazy question appeared: what would happen if the Mustang was also turned into a mid-engine car? The result was exactly the mid-engine LID Boss 429. The interesting thing is that looking from the outside, it is almost not much different from an ordinary 1969 Mach 1 sports roof. It did not try to look different at all. But beneath that familiar shell was a structure completely foreign to any Mustang. The Boss 429 engine block, which was supposed to be in the front, as on every American-style muscle car, was moved to the rear and placed right on the rear axle. In other words, where the rear seat row was supposed to be turned into the engine compartment. This is no longer a traditional pony car anymore, but a bold mechanical experiment carrying a mindset closer to European supercars than the Mustang the public once knew. The car was said to have about 375 horsepower, but what makes it special does not only lie in that number. Its true value lies in the idea behind Ford once dared to think about taking the Mustang out of the American muscle mold to touch a completely new territory. What makes this story even more haunting is the fate of the car. According to many rumors, this unique prototype was eventually forgotten and rotted away somewhere in a junkyard. If that is true, then one of the strangest Mustangs in history disappeared from the world almost in silence. At number 1 is the 1967 Shelby GT500 Super Snake. Only one unique unit was ever created, and the story of its birth is also just as crazy as the reputation it has carried for many decades. Everything started not from a mass production plan, but from a tire test session for Goodyear. Carroll Shelby needed a car fast enough, durable enough, and unusual enough to prove tire quality at high speeds. But instead of choosing an ordinary model, he decided to do what only Shelby dared to do: take the 427 engine from the Ford GT40. The machine that once conquered Le Mans, then stuffed it into the body of a Mustang GT500. The result is a true street monster. The Super Snake was said to produce over 500 horsepower, an almost absurd figure, in 1967. Its top speed could reach about 170 miles per hour, a performance level enough to make most sports cars of the same era seem small. The interesting thing is that on the outside, the car still maintains a very Shelby, very classic beauty, rather than turning into something too flashy. The most famous identifying sign is the Wimbledon white paint, along with triple blue stripes running along the body, an appearance both elegant and fearsome, as if it does not need to scream to prove its difference. But also because it was too extreme, the Super Snake was never put into mass production. The manufacturing cost at that time was too high, to the point that the commercial idea was almost unfeasible. And so that unique car became a living legend, an object almost impossible to replace in the Mustang world. Its value today accurately reflects that status. The 1967 Shelby GT500 Super Snake was once auctioned for approximately $2.2 million, becoming the most expensive Mustang ever sold publicly. Looking back at this entire list, it can be seen that the rarest Mustangs have never been special just because of small quantities. They are valuable because each one preserves a bold moment in Ford and Shelby history, where familiar limits were broken to create something unprecedented. And in the collecting world, sometimes rarity is even more powerful than speed, and as for the cars on this list, they have both. If you are most impressed with any model, please leave a comment below, and do not forget to subscribe to the channel to continue exploring legendary cars that few people know about.